I've never been too into horror games. I often find them too campy or annoyingly filled with jump scares that don't actually cause me fright. There have been some horror games that I have played and enjoyed, whether it be psychological horror like Amori or traditional survival horror like Resident Evil. I like to feel genuine terror when I play a horror game. And recently, I played a game that introduced me to a new idea of psychological terror. A game called Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk. The game is a visual novel, meaning it's mostly reading with a couple of dialogue choices. The game appears to be from a first person narrative, as we follow along an unnamed female protagonist who seems to be in her early 20s, maybe. It would appear that we are her voice of reason, the voice in her head that is behind her thoughts. And we have a simple task: help her go buy milk. Now, it's clear that there is something wrong with the protagonist. She's always tripping herself up, struggling to do such a menial task as go buy milk for mom. Her vision is a little distorted. All she can see is red, and people look almost monster-like to her. Add to that, she argues with an inner voice and makes mention of taking some sort of medication. It's clear she is unwell in some regard and has some sort of mental health issues. So, as her inner voice, we must help her. Help her go buy milk. Inside a bag of 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 milk. But we don't necessarily have to help her. We can choose the gentle and supportive dialogue options, but we don't have to. We can also choose to berate her, calling her a useless failure, tearing her down. Now I have to ask, who are we? Are we really just her voice of reason? Why do we have so much power and control? Why do we feel independent? And why am I asking all these questions? Well, my dear viewer, that is because I'm getting into what makes this game truly horrifying. And it's not because of the creepy music or aesthetic. It's because of us. Generally speaking, if there's one person you should be able to trust no matter what, it's yourself. Even if you can't reside in another person, there is always you. You can always find a safe space in yourself. But what if you couldn't? What if you couldn't trust yourself? Couldn't reside in your inner thoughts? In fact, that inner voice seems to be a voice of its own. And you're not sure if it's on your side. Sometimes it seems like it's there to harm you. Maybe pushing you to harm yourself. That's what we are in this game, or at least what we can be. In this game, we peer into someone's broken mind. We see the distorted world of red she sees, and we enter her thoughts. We become her thoughts. And we become something more. Something terrifying. Now, this game is clearly an examination of mental illness and possibly schizophrenia or depression or some sort of stress disorder. It's not entirely defined, and I am no expert in this field. Point is, the game tries to not only put us into the mind of someone suffering from these conditions, but make us part of it. And it's honestly kind of fucked up, but truly horrifying. Later in the game, the protagonist breaks the fourth wall, talking directly to us, the player. She explains how her life has been like this ever since she saw her father's remains after his suicide. Everything turned distorted. All she could see was red, and it seemed like everyone was against her, even herself. Even the medication she takes doesn't change any of it. Nothing can. We may just be a voice in her head, but to her, we aren't just a normal voice, but another person of sorts that has been forced upon her because of her trauma and mental illness. This game is trying to show how whatever disorder this protagonist has is really fighting with the self, but can feel like fighting with another person. The game shows the true horrors of not being able to trust yourself, the horror of there always being a voice that seems like it's a part of you, but at the same time not. And you can't get rid of it. It's always there, whether harmful or helpful. Side note, this is how it is for the protagonist. So, it's all a little unclear and situational, and stress disorders can be different for other people and affect them differently, and it's important to say that all this interpretation is me talking out of my uneducated ass. So, I left some notes from an actual expert in the video description, so check those out. In the true ending of the game, in which you successfully get milk and bring it home for Mom, there is no real resolution. Your mother just tells you to take your meds and go to bed. It doesn't feel like a proper ending, because there is no ending. The protagonist's suffering doesn't end. This was just a normal day in her life, the normal challenges and struggles of it. This game is depressing and horrifying. It's not terrifying because of some scary monster chasing after us. It's scary because we're fighting against ourself. The idea that there's a part of us that isn't really us, and it may be against us, and there's nothing we can do about it.